Peep this. Elon Musk's jet collection is worth a staggering $300 million, and these things are packed with features you can't even wrap your head around. But hold up, because I'm also about to show you the insane $216 million he drops on his kids, his $80 million private neighborhood, his bonkers car collection, and a whole lot more. But first things first, let's talk about his sneakers, which are so insanely illegal, he could literally face 6 months in jail for them. Because back in 2019, he was unveiling the Tesla Model Y at the Tesla Design Center in California. But my guy couldn't just roll out the greatest car ever made looking basic. No, he had to show up rocking something so controversial, it's literally a crime in California. We're talking custom, one-of-one Air Jordan Tesla kicks. They're decked out with stuff like pony hair, flashy red metallic leather, and actual python leather. But yeah, in California, flexing anything made from a python is a major felony that can get you locked up for up to 6 months. But Elon clearly isn't trying to catch another lawsuit because he's completely ghosted those shoes ever since. Those sneakers only ran him $1,500 though, which is literally nothing compared to the drip he's got planned for Mars. Because in space, time gets all weird. So he had to make sure his watch game was absolutely untouchable. So he hit up Tag Heuer to cook up something totally unique for him, and boy, did they deliver. This is the ridiculously limited edition Carrera 1887 SpaceX, and it dropped on the 50th anniversary of the first ever Swiss watch to be worn in outer space. But here's the thing, you could actually buy that watch for $10K. So while Elon's stuck on Earth, he knew he had to level up his risk game big time. So, not only did he cop an Audemars Piguet for 50 grand, he also scooped up a Richard Mille for a casual $200,000. Now, that's just insane, but his car collection is legitimately out of this world. No, I mean it literally. He took his personal $100,000 Tesla Roadster, strapped it to a rocket that he built, and just yeeted it into the cosmos. Who on earth does that? He even live streamed the entire spectacle, and you can go online and track where it is in space this very second. And since he's obviously never getting that car back, he just went ahead and bought another one. But Elon's garage isn't just full of Teslas. Cause since he created the first big-time electric car, it only makes sense that he'd own the first big-time gas car too. The 1920 Ford Model T, that clunker barely even runs, and it cost him $25K. But did you have any idea his ultimate dream car was also a gas guzzler? When Elon was just 17, he saw a Jaguar E-Type in some magazine and was immediately hooked. Back then though, Elon was as broke as the rest of us, with only $2,000 to his name and $100,000 in debt. But the instant he made a little bank, he copped it. And get this, that car was a piece of junk too. And then the first car I ever bought, a 1967 Series 1 E-Type Jag, was constantly breaking down on me, causing all kinds of problems. In fact, it conked out on the drive home from the dealership. Okay, $100K is a lot of cash for a lemon, but one of his most expensive cars nearly ended his life. Cause right after Elon made his first massive fortune from PayPal, he went full supervillain and bought a $1 million McLaren phone. Until one day, I didn't really have a clue how to handle the McLaren. So I just floored it, switched lanes, and immediately started spinning out of control. I vividly remember seeing all these cars hurtling toward me while I was skidding backward. And then we smashed into an embankment, which launched the car into the air like a discus and completely wrecked the suspension. All the glass, the wheels, everything was totally shredded, and the front and back of the car were just mangled. Elon needed a new ride, except he wanted something that was even more unhinged. So he decided he absolutely had to own a car that could literally transform into a submarine. Yeah, that car from James Bond is 100% real. And after some random couples stumbled upon it in a locked storage unit, Elon swooped in and grabbed it for a cool $1 million. Bumping his car collection's total value to over $2.8 million. But where in the world is he gonna stash all these cars? Oh, I don't know, maybe in the entire Bel Air neighborhood full of mansions that he bought? He started off just buying one house like a regular person, except his regular house was worth $17 million. This palace has 7 bedrooms, a full gym, a spa, a tennis court. I mean, this place even has its own dang movie theater. Yo, wait a minute, even Elon smashed that subscribe button? And this is our very first video. So, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe And he loved the spot so much, he went out and bought 6 more just like it. My man really owns 7 houses with gyms and still has the body of Peter Griffin. And all those mansions are pretty much identical, all except for one, because Elon went and literally bought Willy Wonka's house, which looks totally normal on the outside, but is a complete funhouse on the inside. Don't you own Gene Wilder's house? That is a seriously strange house. Yeah. All the cabinets are like weird shapes. There are like doors that lead to nowhere, random corridors and tunnels, and just bizarre paintings all over the walls. But Elon wasn't about to live in some creepy as hell house. So obviously, the next logical step was to turn it into a private school for his kids. Let's look at the physics and economics of a rocket. Look, I'm in no position to question one of the richest guys alive, because he's the one who can afford an $80 million neighborhood. That Tesla money must be something else. So, you already know the man had to get a diamond Tesla ring to celebrate his success, and Elon isn't usually the type to be flexing a bunch of ice, but since it was a gift from the legendary Ben Baller, he gave it a pass. He has bought one piece of jewelry himself though, except it wasn't for him. Pulled straight from his father's emerald mine, he gave this giant green emerald on a 14-karat gold necklace to his college girlfriend. And after they split up, he probably wasn't heartbroken like I would be after dropping $50K on it. His second wife though? She hit the absolute jackpot. Apparently, the moment Elon figured out that ladies are obsessed with rings, he went totally overboard and snagged 3 separate engagement rings for his new flame. The first rock he picked out was a cool 100 bands. But get this, since Elon was pulling in hundreds of millions, she totally called him out for being a cheapskate. So to smooth things over, he dropped $300,000 on another one. And here's the kicker she didn't see coming. That was just her casual, everyday ring. On top of that, he got her a special occasions piece, dripping with 10 sapphires and a diamond so massive it set him back a full $1 million, pushing his total jewelry bill to a staggering $1.5 million. Obviously, blowing that kind of cash meant nothing to Elon, because he bounced just 2 years later and handed her a cool 16 mil for her trouble. But you think that's wild? What if I told you his kids are an even bigger money pit? Your average parent shells out around $300K total to raise a child. Yeah, well, Elon's kids are anything but average. We're talking elite private schools and jet-setting vacations on his private plane, which easily burns through $1 million a year. That means this dude is dropping at minimum $24 million on a single kid. But hold on, he's got 9 of them, so do the math. That's a tab of roughly $216 million. Look, that's a stupid amount of money, but who's counting when you're collecting private jets like they're trading cards? Elon couldn't handle having just one measly jet. So, naturally, he went out and bought 5. His starter jet was a modest 26 mil. You know, the usual stuff. Recliner seats, a dining room, a bedroom, the basics. But see, he bought that back when he was just a regular millionaire. The second he leveled up from M's to B's, you think he was going to be caught dead flying in the same dinky jet as Taylor Swift? Absolutely not. He saw fellow billionaire Mark Cuban cruising in a Gulfstream G-550 and just knew he had to do it bigger. So what did he do? He copped 2 of them for $62 million apiece. But of course, it wasn't long before a shinier new model dropped, the G650. And the upgrade between the two is just mind-blowing. The G650 has, wait for it, 1 extra seat. That's literally it. That's the whole upgrade. It's exactly like when you buy the new iPhone. That's basically identical to your old one, except billionaires do it with private jets. The only tiny difference is, instead of forking over $1,000, they're dropping $75 million. And just recently, Elon threw down another $75 mil on the latest Gulfstream, the G-700. Want to take a wild guess at what the huge difference is this time? I'll give you a hint. You know how iPhones just get a tiny bit bigger every year? Yeah, they basically just stretch the plane out a little. I guess when you're sitting on over 200 billion, burning 300 mil on jets is just pocket change. But Elon's most legendary purchase might just be the ultimate flex in history. Because for regular folks like us, if an app is annoying, we just delete it. But if you're Elon Musk, you just buy the whole darn company. See, when Twitter was going crazy censoring everyone, Elon decided to hit pause on his whole colonize Mars project just to save free speech. And never mind the fact that Twitter was hemorrhaging billions, he bought it anyway. Seriously, can you wrap your head around having so much cash you don't even sweat losing billions? Because he massively overpaid for the company, basically just for the memes. One of Elon's all time favorite memes is the number 420. So, naturally, he offered to buy every single share of the company at 54.20. The dude must have been flying high when he signed off on that deal. Experts figure he overpaid by a casual $19 billion, which jacked the final price for that dying bird app up to a cool $44 billion. But hey, it seems like Elon is actually trying to salvage this thing. He just recently rebranded Twitter to X, and now he's talking about turning it into some kind of super app. And if he pulls off something like China's WeChat, X could eventually be worth a mind-boggling $80 billion. But hold up, there's another guy who's almost as loaded as Elon, and his collection of expensive toys is just as insane. You won't believe it. Jeff Bezos has owned some of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of, like a clock that's supposed to last forever, and top secret treasures he fished out from the ocean floor. Let's dive into the absurdly pricey stuff Jeff Bezos owns. Kicking things off, Jeff got himself a dog that can, no joke, do his laundry. This robot dog, named Spot, can do way more than that. For example, if Jeff is thirsty for a beer, he just sets his cup down and lets Spot fill her up. But if that's a little too weird for you, don't worry. Spot can also just pop over to the corner store and pick up some snacks for him. And once Jeff's finished snacking, the robot cleans up the mess. Heck, you can even upgrade it with a gun attachment to make it his personal bodyguard. And if you're picturing a Terminator-style robot uprising, chill out, it's got a kill switch. And even though this robo-pooch set Bezos back $75K, it's not foolproof. So if Bezos really wants to stay safe, he can't just count on his little metal friend. Why? Because some seriously powerful people are supposedly out to get him. That's exactly why the man has the most expensive private security detail on the planet. It all started when a journalist was taken out in Saudi Arabia, and Bezos pointed the finger directly at a Saudi prince for the hit. And their government apparently didn't appreciate that one bit. They allegedly shot threats at Bezos and even hacked his phone, trying to blackmail him over a secret affair. So, what did Bezos do? He didn't just install military-grade bulletproof glass in his office. He also hired a squad of 9 bodyguards that shadow his every move. And that kind of protection doesn't come cheap, running him a bill of $1.6 million a year just to make sure Amazon's golden boy stays in one piece. But even that's nothing compared to the millions he blew on dragging a legendary lost artifact up from the bottom of the ocean. And no, I'm not talking about another submarine. This was something that literally fell from the heavens. See, in case you weren't aware, Bezos is a massive space nerd. As a kid, he was totally obsessed with the Apollo moon missions, which means he was ready to drop any amount of money to own a piece of that history. And as it happens, fragments of the very rocket engine that launched America into space were just sitting at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. So Bezos put together a team to go dredge up the wreckage. The restoration alone cost millions. Just one of these original engines is valued at around $15 million. But we'll probably never find out the final price tag for his little deep sea adventure because he kept the whole thing under wraps. And get this, he's not even keeping the engine for his man cave. He actually went and donated it to a museum so everyone could see it. Maybe Bezos isn't the supervillain everyone thinks he is? Alright, scratch that. But look, when you're worth $165 billion, you've got to treat yourself to something nice, right? Like a ridiculously expensive collection of cars. And of course, he's got all the basic rich guy rides. You know, the stretch limo, the Escalade, and the Range Rover. But the thing he bought way back in the year 2000, right after he made his first $10 billion, you're never going to believe it. Get this, his first car was a 1997 Honda Accord. I'm dead serious. The guy is worth billions, and he chose to spend $10,000 on a Honda. But yeah, that whole I'm a regular guy act didn't stick around, because he immediately went and dropped $3 million on a Ferrari Pininfarina Sergio. Only 6 of those were ever produced globally, but that's somehow the most boring supercar he has, since he also grabbed a 1 of 7 W Motors Lycan Hypersport, the only car on earth with those insane doors. But you can't be a billionaire without the ultimate status symbol. If you ask what color his Bugatti is, Bezos would probably say Oreo, because he owns a black and white Veyron. It's an absolute rocket and the fastest in his garage, hitting 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, which kind of explains the $3.5 million he paid. But he blew even more on a car that's literally covered in diamonds. Jeff's Koenigsegg CCXR Trevita is coated in a carbon fiber weave that's infused with 1 million tiny white diamonds. Being one of only 3 in existence, it ran him a cool 4.8 mil. But his final and most ridiculously priced car is a Lamborghini Veneno Roadster. This hyper-exclusive Lambo was commissioned just for the company's 50th anniversary, so, of course, it cost him $10 million, bringing his little car collection to about 20 mil. I mean, obviously a billionaire is gonna collect supercars, but let's be real. Bezos is not your standard billionaire. Because I'm willing to bet you had no clue the man dropped 42 million on a clock. This thing stands 500 feet tall. Just try to picture a clock that is literally taller than the Great Pyramid of Giza, built directly into a Texas mountainside. And because Bezos is all about the long game, forget seconds and minutes, this thing tracks years and centuries. It ticks only once a year and chimes every 100 years. It also contains 5 secret, pyramid-style rooms that are set to open over a 10,000-year period. You know, assuming we don't nuke the planet by then. But billionaires don't worry about stuff like that, since Jeff can just zip away on his private jet, and you already know he's not gonna own just one. The man needs a fleet. As soon as he became a billionaire, he scooped up a Falcon 900 EX, but it was just too basic for his taste. So, naturally, he gold-plated the bathrooms and tossed in a king-size bed, which cost him $13 million, and this was when he was only worth a few billion. So, in 2015, when his wealth exploded to $70 billion, he obviously had to ditch that peasant plane for something way better. He opted for the Gulfstream G-650ER because it's pretty much a mansion with wings. We're talking multiple bedrooms, bathrooms, couches, TVs, if you can name it, it's on there. My guy tricked it out like he was customizing a car in Grand Theft Auto. And that's exactly why it set him back $75 million. But one wasn't enough, so he bought an identical second one, making his personal jet fleet worth $150 million. Now, since those things are probably responsible for half the world's pollution, Jeff gets a ton of hate. So he decided to buy something that could control what people think. And what's a better way to do that than to literally own the news? Bezos set his sights on the Washington Post, the absolute top news outlet in Washington, D.C. I mean, he was so desperate to have it, he took the very first price the owners threw at him, $250 million. And I'm pretty sure you'll never read a negative story about good old Jeff in that paper again, because now he can just launch article attacks on anyone he doesn't like. But if you think $250 million is insane, just wait till you hear the price tags on his mansions. Because you know he's got way more than just 1 or 2. The man has 7, and some are just plain weird, like his DC house that was actually a public museum before he bought it. He literally erased a piece of history so he could have another property that sits empty most of the year. So, where there used to be historical relics, there's now a movie theater, a whiskey tasting room, elevators, a ballroom, 11 bedrooms, and 25 bathrooms, costing him $36 million in total. Who on earth needs that many rooms? And that's only one of his places. He has another one down in Miami worth $68 million. This place on the water has 7 bedrooms, 14 bathrooms, its own sauna, and a massive pizza oven built into a wall. He enjoyed the property so much, he just had to have a second one. So, he basically forced his neighbor out and bought their place for $79 million. His next piece of real estate, however, is worth $80 million, and it's not even a mansion. It's an apartment. He purchased a 4-floor penthouse in New York City. It has all the standard billionaire stuff, like marble floors, a library, and a glass fireplace. But it's in one of the only buildings with a flawless view of the Empire State Building. But this last mansion has to be my personal favorite, because not only is it in Hawaii with perfect weather, but the views are some of the most insane things I have ever seen. First, you have your own private beach. But then, right next to that, is an entire freaking lava field from a 1,000-year-old volcanic eruption. And there's not just one mansion here. There are actually 3. So, I guess that's why he shelled out $78 million. But the local Hawaiians are getting more furious every day. Since Bezos is just the latest billionaire buying up huge chunks of their small islands, and if they ever try to storm his property, he's basically got a private military base in his backyard. So, I'm sure he'll be fine. Do you really think Jeff Bezos cares? He can buy literally anything he wants. I mean, the dude holds the record in California for the most expensive home ever sold. It's not even built yet, it's being constructed in Beverly Hills. But just to buy the plot of land and bulldoze the old house, it cost the man $165 million, pushing his total real estate portfolio to at least 500 mil. And that's not even counting the secret properties nobody knows exist. But even that is nothing compared to Jeff Bezos spending $4 billion on his balls, which he saved exclusively for his favorite employees. Jeff? Not times those times balls. The Bezos balls is the nickname for Jeff's insane Amazon office spaces. This campus is essentially a giant greenhouse with exterior glass walls and more than 40,000 exotic plants packed on the inside. Seriously, the biggest tree inside his balls stands over 50 feet tall. You can even buy tickets to visit this private jungle. And you'll get to see Amazon employees working away in the foliage like it's a human zoo, all because Jeff believes it will boost their creativity. This really puts a whole new spin on the phrase sweatshop. Sure, Bezos might be obsessed with his, orbs, but let's be real, his yacht is his true love, considering it's one of the most ridiculously expensive private boats on the entire planet, and this ain't just some regular yacht. Peep this, it's a freaking sailboat, meaning this absolute monster can move without an engine, which is completely bonkers when you realize the thing towers over 400 feet tall. On top of being the biggest sailboat in the world, this yacht is kitted out with some absolutely unbelievable features. It has its own $10 million helicopter that, in a wild plot twist, Bezos' wife is actually able to fly herself. But it's also packing jacuzzis, an entire nightclub, a garage for a fleet of supercars, and yep, you called it a submarine. Let's just pray this sub is built 8 times, little times better than some others we've heard about. And to make things even more insane, the whole yacht can be piloted by just one person, when most boats this size need a massive crew. This absolute freak of a boat costs $25 million a year just for upkeep and hit Bezos' wallet for $500 million just to buy the damn thing. But the priciest thing he ever owned? A single piece of paper. Because back in 2019, Jeff's wife caught him red-handed with his mistress. And she was completely justifiably beyond pissed. But for some boneheaded reason, Jeff was running around doing all this without ever signing a prenup. And it's just like Kanye said, when she leaves your butt, she's gonna leave with half. In all honesty, his ex-wife pulled off the greatest investment in history, cause she married him when he was worth next to nothing and divorced him at his absolute peak, securing herself a cool $38 billion bag. But then there's a billionaire bachelor who is notorious for spending cash like it's about to expire, cause Drake's $185 million jet has some seriously insane custom features. But the guy also owns a $100 million amusement park and the most expensive shoes ever created. And believe me, there's so much more. Like, the dude owns the single most expensive NBA championship ring in history. I mean, yeah, Drake's definitely a hooper, but, he wasn't exactly an NBA player. He's the official ambassador for the Toronto Raptors, even though that whole thing was pretty controversial. He got a championship ring from the team, but of course, that wasn't enough. So, he had a custom ring commissioned with 30 carats of diamonds, which is more than any NBA ring in history. And that's exactly why it's worth $150,000. But this next item could have thrown Drake in the slammer for over 10 years. Cause when he bought the cover art for his new album Her Loss, he got hit with a lawsuit for using a totally fake Vogue cover. Copyright infringement carries a maximum sentence of 10 years in prison, so he ended up paying a $4 million fine. A small price to pay to stay out of prison, which would have absolutely destroyed his life. But Drake's life was actually flipped upside down when he first discovered Tupac, because he's the one who inspired him to rap. So, he commissioned 2 Jesus pendants with Tupac's face on them, both for $300K apiece. But Drake's Tupac obsession doesn't stop there. Word is, when you sit down on his heated toilet seats, Tupac's Hit 'Em Up starts playing on a loop. Lil Yachty said it gets super annoying though. Every time it's like, yeah, you fat mother, is greater than. It's so annoying when you gotta take a is greater than. Anyway, Drake bought his most insane Tupac item at an auction. They were selling Pac's iconic crown ring that he wore during his very last public appearance at the MTV Music Awards, just days before he was murdered. The ring is engraved Pac and Data in 1996, which is a nod to Pac's girl, Keita Jones. He dropped $1.02 million for the ring, which made it the most valuable hip-hop artifact ever sold. Drake isn't just a fan of Pac though. He is a massive fan of the NBA too. He's dropped hundreds of thousands on courtside tickets, but he also bought something that trolled Steph Curry so badly, it might have actually cost the Warriors a championship, starting with Game 1 of the 2019 Finals. Steph Curry and the Warriors were scheduled to play Drake's Raptors, and Drake was determined to mess with their heads. So, he hit up a rare jersey collector who had to scramble to make his wild request happen just a couple of days before the game. This jersey was so incredibly rare that the owner didn't even want to sell it to Drake, so he had to negotiate like crazy to get his hands on it. The jersey originally belonged to Steph's own dad, Del Curry, from when he played for the Raptors for a very short time. It was insanely rare since he was only with them for 3 years, so it cost him 15 grand. Having Curry on the back of the opposing team's jersey totally got inside the Warriors' heads, costing them the game and basically setting the stage for them to lose the whole finals. Even though Drake loves to spend a fortune on himself, he also gives back to his fans. He's known for just giving out Chanel or Louis bags to girls in the audience. But one fan got something way more special. During one of his concerts, Drake saw a guy in the crowd holding up a sign that said he'd spent all of his furniture money just to see him perform live. Drake felt so bad that he told the fan he was going to give him 50 bands for the support. Is greater than is greater than. You know what, my man? Your furniture money? I'm going to give you 50 more? Is greater than is greater than. It's kind of a dumb move to spend all your money on a concert ticket, but hey, I guess it seriously paid off for him. But 50K is nothing to Drake, because Drake also owns the most expensive shoes ever made, and the crazy part is, you can't even wear them. They are basically more of a piece of art than actual shoes, because they are made of solid gold. They're a collaboration between Drake's record label, OVO, and the Air Jordan 10. The artist who made them said he chose the 10s because they have one of the all-time best design. I mean, just look at them. I totally see why Drake paid 2.1 mil for them. They weigh more than 100 pounds though. Just imagine trying to hit a jumper in those. But those shoes have got nothing on Drake's car collection, because after he really blew up and left his Acura days behind, he traded it in for a Bugatti Veyron Sang Noir, costing him $2.2 million. And if you're wondering why it was so expensive, it's one of only 12 ever made, making Drake the only owner in all of Canada. It was also the very first car to go over 250 miles per hour and could hit 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. That purchase right there basically turned Aubrey into Drake, because after that, he bought 7 other supercars, like a $500,000 Lamborghini Aventador, a $900K Mercedes Maybach G, 650 Landaulet, and $1 million LaFerrari. But get this, one of his most insane cars literally looks like a fighter jet. It's the DeVille 16, and it costs over $2 million. I'm telling you, this thing is straight out of the year 2070. And it absolutely embarrasses the Bugatti because it can blast past 350 miles per hour. Drake's most bizarre ride is hands down his Chrome Hearts Rolls-Royce Cullinan. The inside is decked out with goth crosses and lily flowers, just like the Saints logo, all embroidered into the black leather. And when he kills the lights, the whole ceiling just lights up with a galaxy of stars. But that little nightclub on wheels wasn't cutting it for Drake, because after the whole Astroworld catastrophe, Drake had to blow off some steam and hit up a Houston strip club, leaving over $1 million on the floor for the dancers. You gotta say, thanks, Drake. So yeah, he's totally at home in the club scene and has even rapped in multiple songs that he personally brings in the talent. He's so into it that he even bought a club in Houston called The Ballet for millions. Drake tried to claim it wasn't a strip club, but instead some new dance experience for amazing women. I don't know, dude, that sounds exactly like a strip club to me. But hey, Drake can buy whatever the hell he wants. Like, for example, one of the priciest jewelry collections of any celebrity out there, starting with a chain from the legend Frank Ocean himself. Frank actually wore this chain at the 2021 Met Gala. It's packing over 9,000 diamonds and 18-karat white gold, which is why it's valued at 1.9 mil. Drake also has a watch where he can literally feed his gambling addiction while he's on the move. This thing is the Jacob & Co. Astronomia Casino. And yeah, it has a completely functional roulette table right there on the inside. Drake's personalized version is worth over 600K, but you know he had to get some ice made to rep his own brand, OVO. His logo is an owl, so of course he copped an owl pendant crafted from over a pound of gold and absolutely covered in diamonds, which ran him about 2 mil. Then he hooked up with Pharrell Williams and dropped over $3 million on bling he bought straight from him, which included a solid gold Sony PSP. That's not even the wildest piece in his collection though, because one day some fan dropped a comment on his post saying his teeth looked dirty. That little comment must have gotten under Drake's skin, because he shot back, saying, "I have a pink diamond in my tooth. I brush with activated charcoal before any club night where I would see baddies. I know that. Bro, I have no idea why he got a diamond that small. It just makes it look like he's always got food stuck in his teeth. That tiny little speck of a diamond is worth 15K. But his biggest jewelry flex proved that Drake's the biggest simp. He had a necklace commissioned to symbolize all of his past engagements. And you just know that's gotta be a whole lot of ladies. 42 diamonds for 42 different girls. There is no freaking way he proposed that many times. My man is out of his mind. The necklace itself is 351 carats of diamonds mounted in 18-karat white gold. Each diamond was individually chosen, which pushed the price tag to 12.5 mil. That's more than my entire life is worth, just hanging on a necklace. His whole jewelry collection is probably worth about 50 mil. Damn, but that's absolutely nothing compared to his private jet, which he calls Air Drake, and it's worth a completely insane amount of money. The late great legend Virgil Abloh designed the artwork that's wrapped around the plane. It's got this whole blue sky design, and Drake's OVO owl logo on the tail. On the inside, my dude has 3 private suites, a couple of living rooms, and a business lounge. It can fit up to 45 people on board. You can bet he's throwing some wild parties up there. This thing is nicer than my house. But the craziest part is, even though the plane is worth $185 million, Drake got it completely free. A company called CargoJet knew all about Drake's influence on social media and pop culture, so they straight up gave it to him as a marketing stunt, and they've said ever since that it was a massive win-win. You know what else is a win-win? Subscribing. It's totally free. But even when you're the most famous rapper on the globe, you can't get everything for free, because he spent a ton on a long-lost carnival. Luna. Luna was this big shot amusement park back in the 1980s, but the weirdest thing is that you can't actually go on any of the rides. This place is famous because the rides are actually art installations made by super respected designers. But it got shut down in 1987 because of legal issues. Drake was so obsessed with it though that he decided he had to bring it back. So, in 2022, Drake poured $100 million into getting it back up and running. Damn, 100 mil for this? It looks like it was drawn by a toddler. He's dropped way more on mansions though, like this one place in Beverly Hills, which is worth over 90 million, and it has 10 bedrooms and 22 bathrooms. Don't ask me why you would need more than double the number of bathrooms. This mansion looks like it was plucked right out of Italy, and it's got a sick view of the Hollywood Hills. His bedroom has a wall that literally retracts and opens onto a private patio, so he can easily spit game with whatever girl he has over while they soak in the view. He's also got his YOLO estate in LA, which he scooped up for a cheap 7.7 mil. It's got an 80-foot water slide and a private resort tucked away inside a waterfall. That one's a bit more packed in though, so his neighbors are super close by. And Drake basically told them that if his parties ever bothered them, he'd just buy them out. Now that is a flex. And he wasn't bluffing either, because he ended up buying 2 other houses on that same street. But his main headquarters is in Toronto. He had his $100 million limestone mansion built exactly the way he wanted it. He even threw up a 15-ton Great Wall of Drake around the property so nobody can get inside and take a peek. Every single room in this place is basically its own separate house. Like, Drake's master bedroom by itself has its own kitchen, a hot tub, a dressing room, and 2 decks. And you know, being a huge Raptors fan, he absolutely had to get a basketball court installed. On the way inside, you can check out all the jerseys Drake has from actual NBA players like LeBron and Kobe. He's also got a massive Olympic-sized swimming pool, a spa, a movie theater, and of course, a top-of-the-line recording studio. What else could a guy possibly need? Well, apparently Drake needs more dopamine, because he gambles away more money than I'll ever lay eyes on in my entire life. He is obsessed with roulette and has hit some ridiculous wins. Like, on one of his live streams, he won a single roulette spin that paid out over 17 mil. But obviously, not every spin is a winner. Like the time he blew 20 million betting with French Montana. Talk about embarrassing. That's just pure luck, my dude. Because the second it takes actual brains, like sports betting, he is famously, epically bad at it. This man torched 2.6 mil betting on the UFC in 2022 alone, 1.5 mil down the drain on Izzy losing to Pereira. His sports betting is so cursed that people literally call it the Drake curse. So now everyone just bets the exact opposite of whatever he picks. But here's the crazy part. Somehow he's still up overall. Yeah, that's probably because he's in bed with Stake and they're just bankrolling his gambling, or at least giving him a fat check to shout out their site. If you tune into his streams on Stake, the dude has gambled over $1 billion on there, which I seriously doubt is all his own cash. Is greater than, this is my alter ego. Gate is greater than I need the maximum. But the next billionaire we're talking about is basically the anti-Drake, except for the car collection he's got, because Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson owns enough cars to shoot his own Fast and Furious movie. And his gym is packed with some of the weirdest looking equipment I've ever seen. These are just some of the stupidly pricey things The Rock owns. And get this, even his diet will break your bank, because The Rock wolfs down 4 times more food than you do. Every single year, he demolishes 261 pounds of potatoes, 348 pounds of oatmeal, and $1,100 a pound worth of fish. And since he kicked off this insane Greek god diet 10 years ago, he's torched over $150,000 just on his meals. Bro literally eats more in a single year than a kid from a starving nation will see in their entire life. But I bet that kid eats way more candy than The Rock, because he swears he hadn't eaten any candy since 1989, until he finally caved in 2016. But his diet isn't the only thing sculpting that physique, because his home gym, the Iron Paradise, is stacked with better equipment than any gym you've ever been to. And he doesn't call it the Iron Paradise for nothing. This place is basically an industrial-sized warehouse that only has gear built for elite-level athletes. From super luxe workout brands to dumbbells that go up to a massive 150 pounds and machines you could only find at an NFL stadium, The Rock makes sure all $300,000 worth of his equipment gets a workout every single day. He's actually so hardcore, he won't even leave to use the restroom. Is greater than. During every workout, I have to go to the bathroom, so I break out the bottle. Oh, and if he has to travel somewhere, not a problem. He has a whole crew of people who transport all 40,000 pounds of it to his destination. That means he's shelling out about $210,000 every single time they have to move it. And The Rock makes damn sure his mobile gym is never running late. I mean, the guy's got enough watches for every single time zone in the world. And his Breitling Super Ocean Heritage chronograph cost him $8.3 alone. You know you're loaded when you start calling your watch a chronograph. But he almost never buys one-off special editions because he collects entire collections of watches. He's got a $15,800 to $20,000 collection of Tag Heuer, a $53,000 collection of Rollies, and 4 IWC watches clocking in at $76,000. But his biggest watch hoard of all comes from Panerai. He owns so many, even his movie characters wear them. And after he dropped $84,800 at Panerai, The Rock leveled up his game again, because this Audemars Royal Oak Frosted Gold chronograph set him back a mind-blowing $328,000. That's more than every other watch we just mentioned put together, making his full collection worth a staggering $560,000. But he's not totally self-absorbed, because ever since he was a little kid, The Rock has always been a man of the people. At 11 years old, he watched his own dad grant the very first wish ever for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And ever since, The Rock has granted 21 kids' wishes just for a chance to meet him. But he wanted to do more than just grant a wish, so he dropped a cool $100,000 on top of it. And with Disney movies all over his resume now, it's crystal clear The Rock loves kids more than BBL Drizzy does. He's even donated $1 million to the Children's Miracle Network and another $1 million to the Nicholas Children's Health System. And The Rock also couldn't forget about the school where all of his success kicked off. So, he dropped $2 million for an alumni center at his college. If his student loans weren't paid off already, they sure as hell are now. And you know what else is all paid off? The millions of dollars worth of supercars he's got, since he owns so many. Ford even let him be the guy to unveil the 2018 Mustang to the entire world. But The Rock didn't even want to keep it. Instead, he gave that $50,000 car to a combat veteran. And that's not the only time he just gave a car away. Back when The Rock was homeless as a teen, this guy named Bruno gave him a place to stay. So to pay him back, The Rock gifted Bruno a brand new Ford F-150. The Rock has got to be one of the nicest guys alive, for real. But this vicious-looking Plymouth Prowler tells a different story, because he snatched it from the set of Pain and Gain for $39K. And he loved that whole criminal lifestyle so much, he copped the ultimate cartel ride, a 76 grand Cadillac Escalade. But I guess that 5,000-pound SUV was too small for him. So he cuffed a gigantic 6,500-pound Ford Hennessy Velociraptor. This $150,000 monster could deliver the smackdown to any pro wrestler. And it has a ridiculous paint job too. We're talking Smurf blue. Well, at least his Lamborghini Aventador isn't quite as embarrassing as that thing. With a top speed of 217 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 of 2.9 seconds, it's one of the fastest cars on the face of the earth. And he spent a small $216K on it. But with a car that insanely fast, he had to get something classy to match those wild IWC watches. And the Rolls-Royce Wraith is the peak of class. Even with his suits that are too small, The Rock still looks fresh as hell stepping out of this James Bond car worth 300 grand. And he must have gotten addicted to the fancy rides, because he bought a McLaren 650S for $309,000 and another Rolls-Royce. Except this one is a Cullinan. If he's ever in a charitable mood again, maybe he could share that second Rolls, because it cost him a cool $330,000. But once he was done with the Rolls-Royces, The Rock leveled up his spending game, jumping from playing with thousands to dropping straight up millions. Take, for example, his LaFerrari. We're talking about the absolute peak of their engineering. Seriously, they shoved a freaking Formula One engine into this beast. Topping out at 218 miles per hour, this ride could give the Flash a run for his money. But that kind of superhuman speed doesn't come cheap, because this thing set him back a whopping $1.14 million. And get this, that's not even his craziest car. His Pone McLaren puts it to shame. That thing makes a 650S look like a beat-up Toyota Camry. Plus, this hypercar is insanely exclusive. We're talking so rare that each one is totally unique. Not a single one is identical to another, which is perfect for a guy like The Rock who lives to be different. So naturally, he threw down a bag worth $1.15 million to get it. Now, you might think hypercars and superlux rides are the pinnacle, but buckle up for his most ridiculous car of all. A vehicle most of us can only fantasize about, the 2017 Ford GT, but don't get it twisted by its muscle car exterior. He might have snagged it for a cheap $450K, but today its value has exploded to over $1.2 million. But $1.2 million is chump change next to the crown jewel of his entire collection, the legendary Pagani Huayra. This isn't just a car, it's the freaking messiah of automobiles. It absolutely smokes everything else he owns at 238 miles per hour. It's also the most exclusive, being one of only 100 ever made, and it's by far the most expensive car in his collection at a staggering $2.55 million. That single Pagani bumps his garage's total value up to a mind-blowing $6.1 million. It's basically the ultimate driving machine. Well, almost ultimate. Yeah, The Rock actually had to get it custom modified just so his massive frame could squeeze in, but let's be real, the dude still looks like an absolute boss behind the wheel. And speaking of being a boss, nobody goes bigger than The Rock. I mean, the guy bought an entire football league. With the NFL completely owning the fall, The Rock decided to resurrect spring football and give them a little competition. The biggest name in spring football used to be the XFL, but after the whole world shut down, they were forced into bankruptcy. But of course, who else but The Rock would swoop in at the 11th hour and just dump a fortune into the sinking ship? He snapped up the XFL for a cool $15 million and basically became the savior of spring football overnight. And he's not stopping there. He's planning to double the number of teams from 8 to 16 by 2026. At this rate, The Rock might actually become a serious rival to the NFL. You really can't knock the hustle. This man literally went from being a walking 90s meme with that turtleneck picture to going head-to-head with the biggest sports leagues on the planet. But there's one sports empire he could never challenge, the WWE. Why? Because until a very recent agreement, they literally owned the rights to his name. That's right, The Rock didn't even belong to The Rock. However, when The Rock decided he wanted to step back into the squared circle, he suddenly had all the bargaining power he needed. He basically forced the WWE's hand to sign over the rights to his iconic name, and in the end, he locked down the deal for $30 million, which means his name, The Rock, is literally valued at 30 mil. Just his name is worth more than Taylor Swift's entire mansion. And believe me, when it comes to property, this guy doesn't mess around. Being Hollywood's highest paid actor, it's no surprise he owns some of the most insane properties you've ever seen. For starters, his Miami mansion is less of a house and more of a private 5-star resort. It's got its own freaking cinema, probably so he has a place to screen his most epic box office bombs. Featuring 6 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, a full-on gym, a lush garden, and a massive pool, this place set him back a wild $3.4 million. But before he went on another property buying spree, he decided to do something for his family, hooking his mom up with a house that was even more massive. This 4,400 square foot mansion in Encino boasts 6 bedrooms and 4.5 bathrooms, and he went all out, customizing it just for his mom. She's got a room dedicated entirely to her ukulele collection, a SmackDown-themed room to celebrate her son's career, a personal chef on call, and yes, a room that is exclusively for eating breakfast. You gotta hope she feels the love, because The Rock shelled out a cool 3.8 mil for that crib. But even that pales in comparison to the literal castle he owns in Georgia. We're talking a 14,000 square foot estate with a library, a wine cellar, stone fireplaces, a saltwater pool, and get this, an actual T-Rex skull. And for reasons I can't even begin to understand, it also features a full-blown equestrian arena for him and his daughters. Apparently, that $9.5 million home wasn't quite spacious enough. So, he also bought a 7-bedroom, 7-bath mansion in Virginia. You know, most little girls just wish for a pony. But The Rock went ahead and made his daughter's dreams come true because this property comes complete with horses, stables, and practically the entire countryside for them to roam. This $12 million estate also included a gigantic pool for The Rock to chill in during the afternoons. But, naturally, his most over-the-top mansion is located right in the heart of celebrity heaven, Beverly Hills. This Mediterranean-style compound is basically an athlete's paradise, built for a guy like The Rock. It's got a golf course, tennis court, another pool, and a gym, clearly to ensure his kids sample every single sport. You just know he's that super intense dad who almost went pro. But hey, at least he acknowledges other hobbies are a thing. That's why he also threw in a music studio and, you guessed it, another home cinema. Let's just hope he's got enough self-awareness not to star in his own productions and just stick to the Fast and Furious franchise. I'm pretty sure he gets the memo, being the biggest movie star on Earth and all. And what's the one thing the world's biggest movie star absolutely has to have? Obviously, the biggest and baddest private jet. This aircraft is basically a palace in the sky. It comes with personal chefs, seats that fully recline into beds, a private master suite, and a 55-inch 4K television. The craziest feature, by far, has to be its anti-jet lag technology. At night, the cabin's lighting and ambient sounds are perfectly synced to your body's sleep cycle, and the cost for arriving perfectly refreshed? Just a cool $73 million. Meanwhile, I guess the rest of us normal folks will just have to keep suffering in coach for the rest of our lives. But no matter how ridiculously he spends his fortune, his fans absolutely adore him. Our next billionaire, however, is a little more polarizing, like half the country can't stand him. And Donald Trump's $100 million private jet is decked out with some wild features. It might just be the most opulent aircraft ever built. But that's not all. He's also got multi-million-dollar mansions complete with secret tunnels, a $30 million yacht, and a whole lot more. Just one of Trump's watches, the Rolex Day-Date Gold, is worth $15K by itself. He also rocks the same model of watch that Drake and the late Queen of England both had, a Patek Philippe Ellipse that'll run you about $24,000. But the crown jewel of his watch collection is the Rolex Ice Blue Platinum, a gift from the one and only Steve Will Do It. Is greater than, I wanted to get you a platinum presidential watch. Is greater than for the president? Is greater than, wow. Oh, that's beautiful. You can't even buy this watch off the shelf. It was a custom order, which puts its value at $109,000, pushing his whole collection's worth past $200K. But for a guy like Trump, that's basically pocket money, which explains why he's poured millions into his fleet of cars. You know, when most of us got our first car, it was some beat-up hand-me-down. So, Trump's very first whip was a 1956 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud, and my guy was completely obsessed with it. So much so that like decades later, he cashed in a wild favor from Rolls-Royce. They literally went into their archives and built him a perfect copy from scratch. And get this, it only set him back $35K. But come on, you know Donald can't be caught dead in a car that times cheap anymore? He had to level up to a $300,000 Rolls-Royce Phantom. And if you're over there wondering why it costs a fortune, just know the volume knob is literally crafted from a 100-year-old meteor. You are not going to see this next car coming though, because even though the dude is a total climate change denier, all this global warming stuff, and a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry. Okay, so then he went and bought the original Tesla Roadster for $200K. I mean, it's one of the fastest cars on earth, so who's going to say no to that? But just like every other billionaire, Trump obviously needed a Lambo in his collection. He copped a classic 97 Diablo for $460,000, which just sold at auction for a record-breaking $1 million. The guy has tons of other supercars, but his most ridiculously expensive ride, by a long shot, is the Trump limo. The minute he became president, he went completely psycho on the security features, because if anyone even tries to run up on his limo, the door handles will straight up electrocute them. This limo is bomb-proof, bulletproof, and can even brush off chemical attacks. While it's rolling, it can drop tear gas, pop smoke screens, and dump slippery oil to make sure no one can chase it. And of course, it's packing shotguns, grenade launchers, and basically every other weapon you can possibly think of. Not to mention, he slapped gold on every possible surface, making this car, or should I say, asterisk tank asterisk, worth $1.5 million. But just you wait till you hear what he threw down for the Empire State Building. Everybody knows how iconic that building is in New York City, so it's pretty wild that Trump actually owned 50% of it, but this man somehow got his hands on it for free. Apparently, the owner, this dude Hideki Yokoi, had no control over the building since it was leased out until 2075. So Trump hit him up, claiming he knew a secret legal loophole to kill the lease. All he wanted in return was a 50% cut. Trump was basically full of it though, because even after he sued to try and break the lease, he completely failed. So he just flipped his share for $28 million. I mean, how insane is that? Trump legally finessed someone out of 28 mil. And as soon as he secured the bag, he dropped millions on not just one helicopter or two, but 3 of them. And he didn't even get different models. Trump bought 3 of the exact same chopper, the Sikorsky 76. And, shocker, there's gold all over them. We're talking custom gold carpets, gold-plated seatbelts, gold armrests, gold door handles. This man has a serious obsession with gold. But why would he even need another model when the 76 is one of the sickest helicopters ever made? And at 7 mil apiece, his little Air Force is worth a cool 21 million. He usually flies them between New York and DC, but every now and then, he'll fly out to his $30 million yacht. The Trump Princess has way more than enough room to land a helicopter, probably because it also has 4 different patios just for lounging. It was designed by a legendary Italian designer, Luigi Sturzo, so this yacht is basically a floating piece of art. But to really get it, you have to see what's inside. The walls are covered in ridiculously expensive materials like chamois leather and bird's eye maple. I'm so broke, I don't even know what that is. But the bathrooms? They're made of hand-carved onyx with gold absolutely everywhere. The place has 11 bedrooms and 4 elevators, with one going directly to his master suite. My dude has a sauna in his bathroom and another one on his private deck. The sun deck also has a full bar and its own pool, which is protected by bulletproof glass. And even if someone somehow managed to shoot him, the yacht has its own hospital complete with an operating room. But the absolute funniest part is that Donald doesn't even like yachts. He literally said whenever he's on one, he can't wait to get off. This man spent tens of millions on something he despises. Now that's what I call a flex. But the next thing Trump bought is definitely not a flex, because it totally ruined people's lives. In 2005, he started Trump University, which was supposed to be all about teaching people real estate. At Trump University, we teach success. That's what it's all about. Success. It's going to happen to you. The first class was free, just to get people in the door. Then, They'd pressure you into buying a course that costs anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000. Sadly, every single class was just common sense stuff, and then they'd just try to upsell you on an even more expensive course. It was, for all intents and purposes, a massive scam. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same hustle people on YouTube and TikTok have been running for years. Trump was seriously the original fake guru. After blowing all their savings on these useless courses, people were absolutely devastated. But hey, you know what's actually useful and won't completely empty your wallet? Subscribing to this channel. It's totally free. Anyway, luckily, the US government finally stepped in and made Trump pay up, hitting him with a $25 million fine and forcing him to refund all the students. Now, that's all pretty messed up, but this next item actually shows a better side of the guy. The Wallman Rink in New York City is one of the most famous ice rinks in the entire world, but in 1980, it was so run down they had to close it. This was a total nightmare for everyone visiting who wanted to go ice skating around Christmas. It was a cherished tradition for thousands of families. For 7 whole years, they couldn't manage to renovate it properly, so Trump decided to swoop in and save the day. He bought the lease for $2.25 million and had the entire renovation finished in less than 6 months, opening it back up for everyone to enjoy. And if you're thinking he only did it to make a buck, then how do you explain him giving all the profits away? Trump literally told the mayor that every dime made from the rink would be donated to charities and public parks. Now, that's really nice and all, but he could only pull that off because he's already insanely rich. I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second. So, of course, the dude's got one of the most ridiculously overpriced private jets on the planet. But get this, his starter jet was a Cessna Citation X, which is apparently the fastest private jet out there. He dropped like 8 mil on that thing, but nah, that wasn't enough for him. Flash forward a couple years, and bam, he levels up to a $100 million jet, and this thing is just bonkers. They call it Trump Force One, naturally. And because it's his, he obviously had to slap gold on literally everything he could. I'm talking gold-plated seatbelts, gold window frames, gold sinks, even the freaking showers are gold. This beast is 3 times bigger than your average private jet and can fit up to 44 people. Inside, you've got a dining room, a whole TV area with surround sound, bedrooms, and a full-on gourmet kitchen. It's so decked out, flying might actually not suck. So when he isn't getting friendly with the cabin crew on his jet, you can bet he's entertaining some A-lister at one of his many mega mansions. And his cheapest one is still worth a cool $2 million. It's plunked down right on his New Jersey golf course and has all the basics, a massive heated pool, tennis courts, a gym, helipads, the usual stuff. To be fair, he did have to buy the whole golf course for $35 mil, so I guess his bank account felt that one. But his next mansion? It's the most insane place I've ever laid eyes on. This place is a ridiculously huge private estate in New York, spanning 230 acres. It's totally secluded in nature, so he can escape the hustle and bustle of the city. Trump apparently also trots around the property on his horses, because let's be real, we all know he's not getting his steps in on a place that big. And if he ever works up a sweat, he can just take a dip in one of his 3 pools. Yeah, there are 2 outside and 1 inside. This is obviously way overkill for one dude. I mean, 60 rooms? 60. But since it's basically out in the boonies, it only set him back 7.5 mil. His next spot, down in Palm Beach, Florida, cost a little more coin. And because this was basically his home base while he was president, this mansion is loaded with some wild secret gadgets. If anyone ever tried to pull up, there's a hidden underground escape tunnel. And if Kim Jong-un ever got any bright ideas about sending a nuke his way, he'd be totally fine, because the property has 3 separate bomb shelters scattered around. But when he's just trying to chill, he can hang out by the oceanside pool or grab a bite at one of the restaurants they literally have inside the house. This place ran him 10 mil. But wait, there's more. He's also got a $13.5 million pad in Beverly Hills. Of course, this spot has the standard Trump checklist. You've got your pool and more rooms than you could ever possibly count. But the sickest thing about this house is that it's wired with high-end Bose speakers in every single room, so he could be blasting some Lil Pump while he wanders around. Trump's also sitting on a couple other $10 million houses, one in the Caribbean and another one out in Charlottesville. But look, 10 mil is basically pocket change for a billionaire, which is exactly why he had to go completely over the top with at least one of his cribs. And you'll never guess this, but his priciest home isn't even a house, it's an apartment. A 3-story penthouse to be exact, sitting right on top of Trump Tower in New York City. Naturally, the place is dripping in gold, has insane chandeliers, and so much art you'd think you were in a museum. He even has a library packed with pricey books, like a $15,000 signed copy of Muhammad Ali's book GOAT. Today, his penthouse is valued at a cool $100 million. And if you add up all his other properties, my guy has like $155 million just in mansions. I guess that tracks for a billionaire who owns a ton of mansions. But here's something I'll never wrap my head around. Why Trump decided to buy an entire race? You've probably heard of that super famous bike race, the Tour de France, right? Well, back in 1989, Trump wanted to prove that the US does everything bigger and better. So what does he do? He creates the Tour de Trump. The route stretched from New York to Jersey, and the winner was set to get a massive $250,000 prize. Just putting on the event cost Trump another $500K, bringing the grand total to $750,000. But it ended up being a terrible investment because the whole thing fizzled out after just a couple of years. Later on, he got into another race, but this one actually led to someone dying. There was this speedboat race down in Florida that Trump got super interested in. His big idea was to buy it and move the whole thing to Atlantic City, so all the spectators could just wander over to his casino next door. But there was a major catch. See, the race was always held where the water was super calm, but shifting it to Atlantic City, with its way bigger waves, was basically setting the stage for a total disaster. So, during the race, a boater named Kevin Brown was absolutely flying through the course going 150 miles per hour when, out of nowhere, he was killed on impact, and they had to shut the whole thing down. It was a seriously bad sign, and on top of that, they had to delay the race for 4 straight days because of terrible weather. But Trump, he couldn't have cared less. All the fans who showed up to watch were bored stiff. So, what did they do? They all went and gambled at Trump's casino instead, making him millions. And we're not talking about some regular old casino either. This was the Trump Taj Mahal, one of the most massive casinos on the entire planet. And that's exactly why it was Trump's priciest buy of all time. This enormous casino had a whole lot more going on than just a few slot machines and blackjack tables. It had several nightclubs where you could go drown your sorrows after betting your entire life savings away on the roulette wheel. But hey, on the off chance you actually won big, there was a whole shopping mall inside so Trump could get his hands on your cash one way or another. It also had a spa, pools, and a bunch of fancy restaurants. And if you got super bored and still had a few bucks left, you could even check out the amusement park. Seriously, this place was big enough to have giant rides and games. So, with all that packed in, you can probably see why it set him back $1.2 billion. But the drama doesn't end with Donald Trump. Next on the list is another controversial billionaire, because Bill Gates has a $650 million yacht with its very own waterfall. Not to mention a $130 million book, a $65 million futuristic mansion, and a ton of other crazy stuff. But okay, first things first, let's talk about his island. Bill apparently wanted to show up his old pal Jeffrey, so he went out and bought one of the largest islands in the entire Caribbean. But so far, there aren't any sketchy looking mansions on it. All that's there is a tiny little hut and some of the most insane scuba diving on Earth. The island cost Gates $25 million, but let's be real, that's just couch cushion money for a guy worth $150 billion. So you're dying to know what he dropped the 100 times that amount on, right? Get ready for this. It was a machine that literally turns your number 2 into H2O. Yep. Apparently, Gates was on a trip through Africa, saw a ton of people sipping on sketchy water, and was like, nah, building wells is for YouTubers like Mr. Sick. Beast, I'm thinking bigger. So his genius level solution was to get them to drink their own, stuff. But hey, Bill swears it's totally safe. He even took a swig of it himself on camera. And this brilliant invention only set him back a cool $200 million. But don't you worry your pretty little head. For your average African village, it's a total steal. It only costs $2 million. I have a sneaking suspicion Bill might have missed the memo that they probably don't have that kind of cash lying around. Anyway, after his eye-opening trip, he hopped on one of his 5 private jets, flew back to his ridiculous mega mansion, and thought, you know what? Time for a little joyride in a supercar. But oh, the humanity? He faced a massive dilemma. He just couldn't pick which car to take for a spin. He considered slumming it in one of his cheap cars, like the Jaguar, the Tesla, or the Mercedes. But this wasn't just any old day. Oh no. So he opted for a ride so ridiculously exclusive, it's literally illegal to drive in the United States. Way back in 1986, Gates copped a Porsche 959 over in Europe since you couldn't get him stateside. He tried to sneak it past US customs, but the feds were like, nice try, buddy. So his sweet ride ended up in car jail for 13 freaking years before Gates finally pulled enough strings to get it home. And after all that drama, the grand total clocked in at $200,000. But here's the kicker. He can pretty much only drive that thing on his private island. So naturally, he also has a $100,000 Porsche 911. But of course, my dude's garage isn't just a Porsche fan club. He's got a classic Ferrari 348, which is a huge deal because it was the very last ride built by the OG himself, Enzo Ferrari. That one only cost him $100K though, which is basically pocket change. So Gates knew he had to level up. He snagged the Rolls-Royce Ghost for $388,000 because it's supposedly the king of comfy cars. Literally everything about that car is designed for the owner to just chill in the back seat. Because let's be real, billionaires don't actually drive their own cars. But even with all that, his entire car collection is still a measly $1.2 million. I mean, Bill's dropped way more on a painting of some dude lost at sea. And no, he wasn't funding a rescue mission. The guy forked over $36 million for a painting of a guy floating in the ocean. I have no idea why he'd blow that much on it, but it completely smashed the record for the priciest piece of art ever sold in the US. And don't even get me started on the rest of his art collection, because the whole shebang adds up to $124 million. But why would he even blink at that number when he owns more private jets than you own pairs of shoes? His budget option is a Cessna 208 seaplane. That's his little toy for zipping over to his island or other off-the-grid spots that don't even have a runway. That thing only ran him about 2.8 mil. Peanuts, really. But the very first private jet he ever bought? Way, way fancier. And get this, he actually waited 10 whole years after becoming a billionaire to buy his first one. I guess he finally got sick of listening to screaming babies on commercial flights and just dropped $27 million on a Bombardier Challenger. Man, he must have been seriously ticked off on that last flight, because he didn't just buy one, he bought two of the exact same freaking plane. And these Challengers aren't even that wild. We're talking reclining seats, a little pop-out table, some couches, super basic stuff. But as Gates started getting up there in years, my guy apparently needed more nap time. So what did he do? He splurged on a $78 million Gulfstream G-650ER because this bad boy actually comes with its own bedroom. And of course, he couldn't just have one. The man bought two of these too. That brings his little Air Force to a grand total of $210 million. I mean, jets are useful, I guess. And Bill's got to find ways to burn through his cash. So naturally, he bought a book that's literally worth more than a private jet. We're talking about the legendary Codex Leicester, penned by the one and only Leonardo da Vinci. It's supposed to be this super rare window into the mind of a total genius, and it basically proves Da Vinci was kind of a weirdo. The entire book is written backwards, so you can only read it by holding it up to a mirror. Total power move. And since Gates is also a weird rich dude, he just had to have it. He shelled out $30 million for it, instantly making it the most expensive book ever sold in history. But honestly, it was a killer investment because that same book is now worth over $130 million. The dude literally just makes money appear out of nowhere. But believe it or not, Bill has way more of his fortune sunk into the insane number of mansions he owns. And apparently he's got a thing for California because he owns 3 separate properties there. His cheapest pad is a measly $12.5 million, probably because it's out in the boonies. It's inside this super exclusive community called the Vintage Club. And just to get your foot in the door to buy a house there, you have to cough up a $250,000 fee. But I guess he got sick of having neighbors because he bailed on that and dropped $43 million on a massive oceanfront mansion down in San Diego. Word on the street is he turned this place into one giant bachelor pad just to throw some seriously wild parties. They literally just finished building the place this past August in 2023. But while it was under construction, don't worry, he was roughing it at his $18 million mansion, just a quick 30-minute drive down the road. He probably snagged this mansion for his daughter, though, since she's big into horseback riding and this property just so happens to have its own horse trail. And this wouldn't even be the first time Gates bought a mansion just for his daughter's hobby. The man actually bought an entire street of mansions so she'd have a place to practice her horse jumping. The catch? These mansions are in Wellington, Florida, and only set him back a piddly $27 million for the whole block. But his most bonkers property, by far, is the one in Washington called Xanadu 2.0. And no joke, it is the most futuristic house I have ever laid eyes on. Like, check this out. If you get an invite, they give you this little pin to wear that automatically adjusts the lighting, the temperature, and even the music in whatever room you walk into, all based on what you like. Plus, most of the walls are actually just giant screens that cycle through different pictures and famous artworks all day long. It's also got a heated indoor pool, and get this, an entire room that's just trampolines. Because, Bill's gotta get his bounce on. But that's just what's inside. Step outside, and you'll find Bill's favorite tree, which, for some bizarre reason, has 24/7 security. He's also got a man-made stream that's fully stocked with fish. Oh, and the sand for his private beach? Yeah, that's imported straight from the Caribbean. This has to be one of the most insane houses on the planet. But crazy enough, it's still valued at the same price as his book, $130 million. But hold on, because what he's planning to spend on his own kids is the real shocker. Because you'd assume a guy worth $150 billion would leave at least $1 billion or $2 to each of his kids, wouldn't you? Nope. Bill apparently said to screw his kids over and is only planning to leave them $10 million each. That is 100% capped though, because you just know he's also leaving them all his multi-million-dollar properties. His big plan is to give the rest of his fortune to charity, but not before copping himself a $650 million yacht. And because this thing is an absolute monster, he usually has to take his $4.2 million helicopter just to get on it. On the outside, it has an insane infinity pool with a whole-ass waterfall off the back and 4 separate decks with lounge areas. But when you get inside, the top lounge is just completely encased in glass. So Bill gets a 360-degree view no matter where he is. And as you head down the massive spiral staircase, you'll find the entrance to a spa, a hair salon, and a world-class gym. This yacht has 7 bedrooms with a gigantic master suite that's bigger than my entire apartment. Not to mention, this absolute unit is powered entirely by hydrogen, making it totally environmentally friendly, of course. To be fair, it's only a rumor that Gates actually owns this. But let's be real, he'd never admit to it even if he did. What he will admit to is owning the most farmland in the entire United States, calling it his most expensive purchase ever. Which is super weird since he's the same guy telling rich countries to switch to synthetic beef. I don't know about you, but you can go ahead and keep your lab-grown meat. Don't freak out though, because even though he owns 270,000 acres of farmland, that's still less than 1% of all the farmland available. So we should be totally fine. All that land ran him about $1 billion. But there's actually one more thing that cost him billions upon billions. Because back in 2011, Gates was hanging out with Epstein on multiple occasions. His flight logs even showed trips to that infamous island. And once that news broke, Gates got hit with some pretty gnarly accusations, the kind that rhyme with cathedral scandals. According to his wife, Melinda, she warned him from the very beginning that it was a terrible idea. I have no idea why he needed someone to tell him that, but whatever. This whole mess was exposed in 2019. At the same time it came out, he was having an affair with some employee at Microsoft, so Melinda divorced him, taking a cool $76 billion of Bill Gates' money with her. None of that stuff is super cool though. But the next billionaire on our list has stuff so wild I didn't even know it existed, because Dana White has a ton of ridiculously expensive items, like an illegal, Soviet-era AK-47 that's literally wrapped in $100 bills. This AK has a clear magazine that shows off some seriously illegal substances packed in each bullet, along with blood, oil, gold, and diamonds. The gun is supposed to be an art piece, representing how currency has changed through the ages. But he just used modern cash to buy it for $25,000. But Dana doesn't just own little things like an ancient samurai sword collection or one of the most expensive sneaker collections in the world, because those are only worth hundreds of thousands. No, things like his mega mansion, which has an entire arcade inside, are worth millions. These are the stupidly expensive things that Dana White owns. And everything in this video is only going to get crazier from here. But first, we have to show you Dana's custom bike, which happens to be one of the fastest motorcycles in the world. He bought a UFC decal 999R with a top speed of 170 miles per hour and a 0 to 60 time of under 3 seconds. It's no wonder it cost him 23 grand. But sometimes, he gets bikes for absolutely nothing, like the time Harley Davidson gifted him a custom chopper in exchange for a UFC sponsorship, making it worth $25,000. And even though he had the Ducati for show and the Harley for cruising the open road, he still needed something that could hit light speed. And this MV Agusta F4 that breaks 194 miles per hour gave him exactly that for the small price of $34,000. But Dana is way more of a sneakerhead than a motorhead. Because the shoe collection in his office is worth way more than any of his bikes. He's got pairs of Howlerhead shoes, UFC kicks, and even a custom pair of House of Pain Jordan 1 lows designed exclusively for Dana White. But his all-time favorite shoe is the Travis Scott bandana print. It's worth $10,000, and you'd have a better chance of seeing Dana actually fight in the octagon than you would seeing him wear these. In fact, he doesn't wear most of his shoes. From the Bart Simpson dunks to the 7-Eleven dunks to his entire top row of sneakers, including the Air Jordan 1 Chinese New Year, he even owns a collection of Grateful Dead dunks worth 12 G's. Is greater than. You wouldn't catch me dead wearing these. I'll tell you right now, is greater than, but there's one pair that's so insane he couldn't resist wearing them at least once. The Dior and Air Jordan 1s. Those are going to be some expensive creases though, because they're $16,000 shoes. He has more shoes than a damn mall. After he dropped 100,000 bands on shoes last year alone, he doesn't just have a mini mall in his office though. He has a full-on museum because he has enough swords to take on a samurai. But before he bought any swords, he picked up some 16th century samurai drip. This armor is so rare, you have to sign up for private registries just to even look at it. So Dana hit up a private dealer and brought the armor to his office at UFCHQ for $12K. But an empty samurai can't just be chilling in the fight capital of the world without a sword. So Dana made a guest appearance on Pawn Stars and basically bought out Rick Harrison's entire katana section. He walked away with a collection of 7 small wakizashi katanas, but also 2 authentic Japanese katanas from the early 1600s. One can even be traced back to a samurai family from over 500 years ago, and the other traces back to a legit samurai lord. Dana straight up turned his office into Bruce Lee's weapons room, but it only cost him $69,000. He's really into classic works of art and even adds full artwork to his cars, because Dana's craziest whip has one of the coolest custom paint jobs I have ever seen. But before we get to that, we've got to show you one of the most monumental car purchases he's ever made. Is greater than I got drunk last night and bought that smart car. Is greater than. Yeah, imagine being so rich that you can buy a $12,000 tin can on wheels while you're drunk just for fun. But Danny ain't no tree hugger. So to clean up his image, he bought a few vintage American-made muscle cars. His collection of classic rides includes a 1969 Chevy Camaro, a 1971 Plymouth Barracuda, and a 1969 Ford Bronco. Model. That Plymouth Cuda? Yeah, it was custom built by the absolute legend Chip Foose over on the show Muscle Car. And if you're sitting there thinking classic cars are cheap, think again, my friend, because this dude dropped $228,000 for all 3, which came with UFC bikes and garages stacked with American muscle. Seriously, Dana's basically one bad day away from going full John Wick on us. So naturally, he had to add a little class to the collection, splurging $72,000 on a Bentley just for himself. And that ain't even the half of it. This was just days after Steve Wildu literally gave him 500 grand. Yeah, you heard that right, a gift. And then another buddy just casually hands him the keys to a 2024 BMW 7 Series. I'm telling you, this whip is straight out of a sci-fi movie. The doors pop open with a button press. There's a mini flat screen just chilling in the back. And get this, a touch screen panel that runs the entire car. You could probably use that screen to smash the subscribe button on this channel, which, you should totally do right now. And the craziest part, This $97,000 ride was a present from some 21-year-old gambling influencer. Dude, I struggle to buy my friend a freaking beer, let alone a whole ass BMW. But when your boys are buying you cars, you gotta make sure the fam is taken care of, right? So he hooked them up with not one, but two baller SUVs, his 80 grand Range Rover for just cruising around, and a $123,000 Cadillac Escalade ESV for rolling up to UFC events like he's 50 Cent or something. And if his kids weren't already aware that he's got stupid money, they definitely are now, because Dana went and dropped even more cash on two $125,000 BMW M6s. He kept one for himself, obviously, but he tossed the keys to the other one to his son for his 16th birthday. No big deal. You just gotta hope Dana's got some killer car insurance, cause the man has a serious need for speed, like with this legendary Ferrari Testarossa. This thing's famous from that classic TV show, Magnum, P.I., and Dana dropped $142,000 on his Italian stallion, getting it done up to look identical to the one on TV. Clearly, the guy's a TV junkie, because he also copped the same ride Ari Gold whips around in Entourage. This $217,000 430 Spider has a totally insane top speed of 211 miles per hour. And, he actually floors it because my guy's constantly getting pulled over. The dude literally blew past a cop and just got a warning. Must be nice being one of the richest guys on the planet, huh? But hey, Dana's also got to be one of the coolest dads ever. For his other son, Sweet 16, Dana went and bought him a 70th edition Land Rover Defender Vape. And I think we all know who the favorite child is now, because this limited edition Defender is one of only 150 ever produced and cost a cool $180,000. But of course, Dana had to make sure HE had the craziest whip in the family, so he copped a 300 grand custom Maybach van. So why was it so expensive? Oh, he just plastered the entire thing with logos for Howlerhead Bourbon, the liquor brand he owns. Subtle, I'm starting to understand how that whole smart car thing went down. Some of these rides look like they were spit out by an AI. For real though, if you're trying to get a bag like Dana White, the person who masters AI first is gonna be swimming in millions. Like, you could just crank out one of these AI TikToks that narrates a story. If it pops off and gets a ton of views, you could literally make thousands of dollars from a single video. It's like you hop on in-video AI, type up a super detailed prompt for a story you think could blow up, and bam. Am I seriously the only one who had no clue people drop millions on the most absurd stuff? And just like that, you've got a video that's fully scripted, edited, and ready to go. And if you want to tweak something, you just tell the AI to change whatever you want. But the most insane feature within video AI is that you can actually clone your own voice. Seriously, was I the only one living under a rock, not knowing people torch millions on the wildest things imaginable? That's completely next level, because now anyone can make videos using their own voice without ever touching editing software or a microphone. You can even try InVideo AI out for free. But look, if you're actually serious about making content, you can grab a paid plan starting at just $20 a month. That's the one I use, and it gets rid of the watermark, unlocks voice cloning, and gives you a ton of high-quality stock footage. Just hit the link down in the description and use my code WEALTH50 to get double the video generation credits for your first month. But Dana's life is always in the fast lane, both on and off the pavement, because he gambles just like he drives, aggressively. At this point, the UFC is pretty much just bankrolling his gambling habit, and trust me, Dana knows he has a problem. I mean, the guy walks into the casino starting with $75,000 in his pocket. Oh, and if he's up, he'll grab a $150,000 profit and bounce. But $150K is literal pocket change to Dana, because he is not afraid to throw that kind of money around, especially when he's playing his favorite game, blackjack. And apparently, he's got a secret to winning so much at the tables. His words, "I have no fear of risk." And yeah, you'd have to be absolutely fearless to get in there and win. Like this one tournament where he hit 17, the absolute worst hand, and still walked away with $250,000. If I ever hit on 17, I'd probably go bankrupt on the spot. But honestly, Dana's luck is just on another planet. I'm talking, this dude threw down $10,000 on the phone Las Vegas Grand Prix and somehow turned it into $500,000. His luck is so ridiculous that he actually got banned from the Palms Casino in Vegas. He was on some insane 3-month-long winning streak at blackjack, going 24-0. So after Dana bagged $2 million, the casino was like, yeah, no, we can't let you win anymore. But the owner had so much respect for how much Dana was winning, he actually gave him a custom championship belt as a please get the hell out present. Unfortunately for him, Vegas is the one city where the house always gets its payback. And eventually, Dana's lucky streak finally hit a wall. He put a huge bet on Jermaine Taylor to beat Kelly Pavlik in a boxing match. Even though Jermaine was the 8-5 favorite, he got rocked so hard that he ended up losing the fight. But Dana's wallet got hit even harder, because when Jermaine went down, Dana lost a cool $1 million. But blowing through $1 million is absolutely nothing compared to his single biggest loss at the casino. Over at the Rio in Vegas, Dana got a little too wasted with his buddies and stumbled away from the tables thinking he'd only lost 80 grand. He showed up to work the next day, totally pissed off. But the real gut punch came when the hotel manager gave him a call. Turns out, Dana was completely blacked out and had no idea it wasn't just a measly 80K. He had actually lost a jaw-dropping $3.2 million. After that disaster of a night, he swore he'd never drink and gamble again, but come on. He loves Vegas way too much to quit gambling for good. The dude is so obsessed with Vegas, he just had to build one of his own personal palaces right there on the strip. But don't get it twisted, his real estate game is way bigger than just one crib. Get this, his smallest spot is a 9,500 square foot mansion called the Ultimate Fighter Mansion, and he doesn't even live in it. He literally had this place built just so UFC fighters could crash there while filming that Ultimate Fighter show. This absolutely ridiculous 2-story palace is rocking 9 bedrooms and 12 bathrooms. Every single bedroom is decked out with fancy furniture, closets you could get lost in, and hand-stitched sheets, while every bathroom has a ginormous soaking tub and a full shower. A massive, hand-painted Roman-style mural is literally plastered across the ceiling of the entrance. It's like you're walking into a mini Caesar's palace. And somehow, this place has more perks than an actual Vegas hotel, like its own movie theater, custom UFC-branded pool tables, and even a freaking executive office. But the backyard is what really makes this place feel like a 5-star tropical resort, with palm trees everywhere and these slick stone walkways. We're talking a pool with a jacuzzi and a waterfall cascading down from a gazebo that's right in the middle of it. I have no idea how they ever get the fighters to actually leave, and this completely over-the-top frat house cost him a cool $5 million. But when he's not busy buying mansions for his fighters, Dana's out here buying up an entire neighborhood just for his own mega compound. It all kicked off in 2006 when he bought his old business partner's mansion, but the neighbors kept hitting him with noise complaints, which forced Dana to shell out $2,500 in fines every single month. So, instead of being a normal person and just, turning the music down, Dana went full savage mode, dunked on the entire neighborhood, and just bought all the houses around him for a grand total of 17.7 thousand square feet. I guess money really can buy you peace and quiet. And the very first upgrade to his new kingdom? His own fully loaded gym. But we're not just talking about some weights. He chucked a mountain of cash at a legit UFC-style padded grappling and boxing room, a Pilates studio, a steam room, a freaking spa for massages and facials, and a recovery room with an infrared bed. After building himself a house the size of a Division I college campus, Dana decided he needed a custom basketball court inside the house. And of course, he personalized it with the Celtics logo. But honestly, Dana doesn't care what he's playing, as long as he's playing. The dude has an entire room just for gaming, complete with a foosball table and a literal, full-blown arcade. The prize of the collection is a Street Fighter machine, because of course it is. What UFC fanatic wouldn't put that in their house? And he's not just mashing buttons all day, because his backyard is so huge you could host Project X back there, with a saltwater pool, jacuzzi, rows of sun lounges, and a full-service outdoor bar. This spot is every dude's absolute dream, especially when you see Dana's insane barbecue setup that he has for his personal chef. With the pro-level gym, the full-on game room, and that resort-style backyard, the final price tag clocked in at a mind-blowing $7.8 million. And even after building his own private Vegas hotel, Dana still has hundreds of millions of dollars just sitting around, and he used a couple million of that to snag a ridiculously luxurious Bombardier private jet that can hold 14 passengers with handmade cabinets and hand-stitched reclining seats. This plane is built with better materials than most supercars. It's insane. He actually conked out mid-flight next to Mike Tyson one time. And Iron Mike immediately proved why falling asleep next to him is the absolute last thing you should ever do. It's also got high-speed Wi-Fi, giant widescreen TVs, Blu-ray players, surround sound, and even LED lighting in a conference room, all of which brings the total cost to $90 million. It's pretty much a flying movie theater, but $90 million is just chump change compared to what his company makes him. And get this, Dana makes more than the top-tier fighters in his own league. When Dana snagged the UFC for just $2.1 million back in 2001, all he really got was the brand name and an octagon cage. He literally built this thing from nothing and turned the UFC into the fastest growing sport on the planet. He was the boss until 2016 when it sold for $4 billion, making it the biggest sale in sports history. That's like buying a cheeseburger off the dollar menu and then flipping it for the price of a gold-plated tomahawk steak. When that monster deal closed, he held on to 9% ownership. That might not sound like a lot, but it pays him a salary of $20 million a year on top of the $360 million he pocketed from the sale itself.